Hi guys, how you doing today? This is Lola Chef again. Today we're going to be continuing with our review of Ready to Love. And so this is season 4, episode 4. The name of the episode today is called Sipping Wine and Spilling Tea. Before we begin, once again, please don't forget to hit the like button, make a comment, subscribe. Okay, so going into it. So the first scene starting, of course, is I believe where the ladies kind of meet, and so this season's called the Ladies Lounge, and so they all sit down. Nephew Tommy comes in and he's kind of cracking jokes, blah 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 blah, and then of course he lets them know that this week it's the power's in their hands, so they're going to eliminate a guy this week. And the big thing he sends, so he starts the week off with a meeting. Typically, I think in the past they always used to end the week with a meeting, but it looks like they'll be having 2 meetings. So now they're really getting serious about trying to weed out what they don't want. So he's starting the week off by telling them, giving them a specific assignment. And so for him right now, he's telling them that their purpose is to dig deeper. He goes as far as, calling them, I think he calls it Lexus, like the Houston Law and Order, watch out. But anyway, jokes aside, they're all sitting there looking pretty, and they've got an assignment with their dates, because some will be group dates and some will be single dates, and they'll kind of decipher who's really here for the right reasons and if they match and if they're welled. All right. So going into the first date between Venetia and Joel, which is nice. So they have a breakfast date scheduled at his house. And, Joel, he's excited to be meeting with her because he says one of the things he loved or likes about her is the fact that she was not just a single mother, but just the way she was being a single mother. He had some respect for how she was being a mother. And once again, remember, this is a gentleman who has young children after his wife passed. So he's definitely looking for someone who would fit into that role. He doesn't just want anyone. He wants someone who he can like and also who be a great mother. That Venetia is also thinking of, as well as she did state that she'd always put so many things in the past. She'd always put other things ahead of what she wants. But what's important to her, that even though now she's looking for that someone, she definitely wants to know that person can fit into her family, and so their families will blend properly. She's looking for someone in a situation where it can blend properly. She doesn't want her children or any other children to suffer as a result of her dating. And so, they have conversations, and I do remember them talking about his wife. And she did ask him, I think he'd mentioned that, when she passed, it had changed him. And she, rightfully asked him, do you think it changed you for the better or for the worse? And he wasn't quite able to articulate what it was, but he knows that he's different. I think that's when he was talking about different things, being a handyman and things like that. So, looking at them, the two of them now, it looks like, this week they look like they're doing well. Next week, let's see. So this looked like a really good day. So going on to Alexis and Troy. So they meet up, Alexis, she's clearly, I don't know when I said this, but I said that I think that ladies need to exchange notes, because he's been, Troy been kissing the ladies, 1, 2, he's been promising everyone a trip. And so clearly the ladies have exchanged notes, and so Alexis is charging in, and she's like, she's upset about that, because she's aware now that she wasn't the only one who was promised a trip, and she's clearly noticed that she's not the only one who's been kissing on the cheek or kissing on the forehead. So, they sit down, Troy's still trying to be smooth, talking about how he's feeling butterflies and how she's electrifying, and she's kind of looking at him like decided, like, all right, sir. And he can tell that she's upset, and she brings it up to him that, that you promised me a birthday trip, but from what I understand, I wasn't the only one who made that promise to. And also that you kissed a few ladies that day, the first day of after the first day they met, not the brunch, but the day before the brunch. And Brad looking at her like, he don't speak English. He's like, no. He's like, no. And we're all, me, the audience, all, I look at him like, excuse me, sir? And of course, shady production. And she goes, no, first of all, she says, well, you even kissed me today? He's like, excuse me, man, I didn't kiss you. Shady production. They scroll right back and show that he did kiss her. So anyway, it looks like she just kind of left it there. And she wasn't satisfied with the way it ended. But yeah, I'm a little surprised by his take on that. But then when he goes into his confessional, what should we call him? Nasty Uncle Troy goes on to say, his excuse. So in his confessional, he does confess that yes, he did kiss the ladies, but yeah, he says that he noticed that no one flinched. beware. That's not the kind of, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Beware. No one flinched, so that's your excuse, and that makes it okay for you to have kissed almost half of the females there. So moving on to Amber and Chris. They had a boxing date. And it looked kind of cute, So Chris said that he had set up this date because, he wanted to see how she would fight for him. I have a problem with that. Bruh, she ain't meant to be the one fighting for you. You're meant to be fighting for her. That's how I see it. But you know what? The beauty of this is that, every pot has its own lid. And so, it looks like she might be the lid, he might be the pot. Let's see. So he says that she's okay with that. They go on. So he's playing to his strengths. He's doing and announcing the chocolate. That's all cute and well. So it looked like they had like a fun date. They kind of, she's throwing jabs and everything. And so finally they sit down to have a conversation. And, she feels comfortable and they're able to talk. So she breaks down and kind of tells her background, how she was adopted. She recently just met a biological sister. She's the only one in her family who's kind of gone as far as college and then law school. And then she kind of goes into also explain that I'm not just an attorney, I'm actually a DA. And I don't usually like to bring that out because it can be intimidating, particularly in the dating field where men might be intimidated by her success in her professional life. And this is the point where I say that I think that every pot has its lid, because for someone who's as strong as she is, it's nice. And his response to her was not threatening, but always like, he was very supportive, very understanding, and like, yeah, I get you. Wow, good for you. Your points have gone up. Like what you see these videos on social media when you see the woman walking and then her guy's like, cheering her on, and everyone says, if you don't cheer me like this, then you ain't with me. Yeah, he's cheering her. He's like, yeah, your points have gone up. I like that part where he's like cheering her on, like, good for you. I'm so proud of you, and da da da. And also he's really showing his his support, and they seem to kind of gel right there. They kind of laugh it off, and it seemed like a really good date. And then I guess in his confession, it's like, he's confirming that, and he's like, Amber, your secret's safe with me. That was cute. So this is, a nice surprise. Like, we did notice in the brunch when she was speaking his language about sharing the bills that this would be someone on his top list, but it's a nice surprise that they actually are kind of gelling. So we'll leave that to be, just kind of leave that. Going on to, we now have a date with Stacey and David. And so they have, Stacey schedules the date in this Pilates place. And so one of the things she said she liked about him was that he was open and willing to try something new. So he's not a Pilates fan, but he's he's good about, he likes the idea of trying to work out. So they meet together. I mean, this Pilates, for those of you who've done, and that's Pilates with the reformer, with the machine. It's not a newbie's game, but they kind of stumble through it and they kind of talk. She cracks a little joke about his age, even though there's probably just a couple years between them, not even up to 5 or maybe 5 at that. But that's all fun and games. But the thing that kind of where things kind of picked up was when they were talking. He was like, look, he's dating with the intent to get married again. And so he's asking her, so what do you see? What are the things that are important for you in a relationship? Sharing passwords to social media, to the phone. What do you think about that? She's like, stop. Like, one thing for her, she's okay with transparency, but she still believes she should have her privacy within the marriage. He feels differently. It was just like a conversation. Clearly they feel differently, and she was triggered. Let me put it like that. Because he didn't, at least from the version we've seen, of course it's edited. I don't know how long the date was. It was edited. But from the version we've seen, he just kind of brought it up just to get a better feel for her. But she was triggered, and in her confessional, she was like, yo, looks like he's not over it, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that means he's not over it. It simply means that he's sharing what he understands or what he sees of marriage and trying to see, what do you think of it? Do we meet in the middle? That. It was just a conversation. He didn't say, hand over your passwords, I want all your money. He didn't say none of that, sis. But she was triggered and she ran with that. And we're gonna come back to this later. All right, so going on to the next date, it is Jason and Alexis. And then also AJ and Liz. So coming in, Liz is one of my favorites. She's wearing this really nice top. It's like a cape, but with the fingers through, just like, it's very regal. And now it reminds me, now I've seen her for a couple episodes, when I see Liz, she reminds me of Whitley from A Different World. Because one, she's got that, southern accent, very proper southern accent. And then two, she's very ladylike. And of course, she's very attractive. So all of it kind of rolls into one, just the way she talks. But another thing, those of you who did watch Different Worlds, thing about Whitley and also with Liz is like she's not someone you can just sleep on. She's not sleep, but like you can't just sleep on, like, oh, she's little, I can just ride over her. No, that's not the case. So the date that these four kind of pair up to is like, you know, an active date. I know it's some kind of pitching, throwing this little bean bag into a little goalpost on opposite sides. So of course on one side you have Jason and Alexis. Alexis is in some kind of denim, you know, outfit. I'm just ensemble, you know, she's got these thigh-high boots and shorts, okay? And then, of course, on the other side is Liz with AJ. And like I said, in her cape, so the cape is in black with like the white trim. I think I like that one for the silhouette, and I do wear a lot of black, so maybe I'm partial to that. So yeah, anyway, so here they go, they start. So they start off, and surprisingly, Liz just casually just throws in the, I'm gonna call it a little mini beanbag, and it goes right into the goalpost. And she does it again, man. And long and short of this, the date, they actually won, and that's probably due to Liz's good hand. So yeah, she's ladylike, but yeah, she had a nice little swing on her, but it was effortless. She didn't struggle to win, and so they won. And so the two, you know, the couples kind of split up, just go sit in separate places. So on one side you have AJ and Liz, and so you know they get talking, and Liz goes on to ask him, you know, about, you know, actually AJ is kind of telling her that. He's actually confirming what I was thinking, telling her how regal he thinks she looks and everything. And then she goes on to ask him about his opinion about, you know, intimacy before marriage, or the lack of, because for her, she's decided to become abstinent until she gets married. And that's something that's important to her. And then she's kind of seeing where he is in that matter. And clearly you can see that AJ not feeling it. You know what we said about AJ, you know, he's still kind of. So of course we've met these personalities, and he's still falling in with within the lines that I've judged him. Of course, so premature judgment because we'll only just begin to see them, but he's still kind of within those lines of where I've placed him, because he's having some issue with you know, this abstinence or celibacy, like, and his little, listen to this, his reason for maybe not feeling the idea of abstinence is that, yeah, you can't teach sexual chemistry. So that's the best you could come up with. Anyway, I love Liz's response. Liz's response is that she will not compromise her standards for love. Beautiful. She didn't say that to him, but she said that in her confessional. So, you know, we can agree to disagree. We don't really talk about that. I'll tell you where I am, you know, I know where you are. I see you. So anyway, so we got to that. But then other than that, they had, like, you know, some good, you know, rapport. They were sitting close together, they're having a good conversation. The other side of the date is Jason and Alexis. First of all, when the camera pans on them, that couch looked like it's, you know, 6 feet long, because the space between them was huge. Could that be telling us something? And another thing that makes me is Jason goes on to say something about how he's having some, he didn't say that till it was in his confessional, he's having some, you know, difficulty, not difficulty, but some, he's trying to transition from being, you know, the coach to her son, and actually her being his date. I'm no man, but I think, you know, listen up, I think that, you know, if a man's attracted to you, I don't think you'd have a problem with that transition. That's just me. I don't know, I'm just saying. But anyway, so that's what he's saying. That's what he's kind of riding with, that, you know, I'm having some, you know, some difficulty kind of doing the transition from, you know, the coach to the date. All right, fine. And, you know, Alexis is also noticing that there is some distance, not just physical distance, but just in the way he's kind of expressing it. And she does say something to that effect also in her, you know, in her confessional, and kind of tells him that for her, you know, they're kind of talking about her love language, you know, what she appreciates time. Gifts are all good and well, but for her, time is important to her. She wants you to give her time. And that can make, it probably makes sense when you look back onto when she described her prior marriage, how things were then, because she was saying that time that her husband, who was a pastor at the time, was always pulled by, you know, by the church members. So that could have been another reason that led to the demise of their marriage. Fair. Going on to the next couple, Chris and Ron. This, you know, when you see a sleeper, just kind of took me by surprise. I've never been a fan of, you know, Ron. And so now Ron, or Ronald, has a date with Chrisantheium. We're going to call her Chris from now on. So, you know, you know, this scene kind of starts with him. You know, he's wearing a sky blue, like, you know, polo t-shirt. I'm like, is that Ron? Like, he like, boom, boom, now above. I'm like, okay, right, you know, go ahead. He walks in, and then I guess Chris noticed that too, because I guess she just kind of went on the date, and she noticed, like, she didn't think much of him, at the brunch and, the other time they met up, but he looked different now. So anyway, they kind of meet up, he gives her a hug, and she's like, that was a strong hug. All right, sir. And so they get talking, and you can see as they're kind of going back and forth, there seems to be a nice chemistry between them. He goes on to talk about, what he wants or what he desires in a relationship, and what she desires is similar. He's traditional, and it appears that she's saying, look, I'm older, and this is what I require. She's, her profession is a flight attendant, but, she kind of moves around, but now she's saying what she would like in a man. And that's the key, I think, to relationships really, is having similar desires. You don't have to be the same person, but the goals and the more important things, what you believe in, what you stand for, it really helps when it's similar, because it's kind of hard if you're two different things for two to become one and you have completely different views. But they have similar views on this, where she's looking for someone who's a provider and a protector, and he's like, that's the easy part. And then she goes on to say, she wants them, and they both kind of agree, they want to be friends, relationship. He wants his, she wants him to, her husband to be a best friend. He wants to have a fun marriage. They're saying the same thing a different way. Already you can see the similarities. This, the sleeper couple, I didn't see. It's looking good. A lot of people do share this view, where when you talk about head of household biblically, when you want the man to be the head of the household, she's saying, I want someone I can respect enough who will lead me and, kind of be the head of the family. That's what he's looking for. He goes on to kind of tell her more, where he'd kind of, fallen off the narrow a while back, and he had spent some time in jail at 18. He didn't say how much or what it was for, but he kind of learned his lesson, and from that time kind of went on to college. And something I thought was, made him appealing and making appealing for the couple is him saying that, what, I want you to know that I will need you more than you need me. So yes, I might be the provider. Yes, I might be a protector. But what she's bringing to the table, supplying both emotionally as the woman in that role, is probably more important than what he's supplying. That's kind of what I'm taking from what he's saying. That yes, I'm giving those things, but what I want back in terms of the support, what women do naturally anyway, is what he's saying he appreciates. I like that, bro. Now I kind of looked at you like you're looking at a wall, but this is a couple to watch out for. This is the sleepers that just kind of came. They're kind of coming through to, to the front. Like, if things don't go wrong, we could see, this could be a starting of something good. On to the next couple, Liz and David. So Liz goes to David's house for this evening date. It's again, Liz, she's one of my favorites. She's wearing this cute pink leather top. All right, sis. But she's always dressed stylishly. But she's not exposing too much. She just always looks, just well put together. I like her style right now. So anyway, she gets to the door, David meets her at the door with roses. They give her a hug, and they sit down and start talking, and they kind of start with that they definitely have a spiritual connection in common. They both have a connection, or they believe strongly in, God, the Holy Spirit, going to church, and they share that, and they kind of go into, their upbringing, and David kind of talking about his upbringing, which was very strict, wasn't allowed to talk to girls, wasn't allowed to do this, and like his mother would pick up the phone and be like, I do have some friends that have voicemails, but they have voicemails like that. His mom would pick up the morning, praise the Lord. And he's like, Mom, please, you're embarrassing me, whatever. But anyway, and then so different rules they had for him. And this is something that people should keep. Hey, I'm not trying to tell people how to raise their children, but a lot of the time you find that when you have this kind of stifling atmosphere for children, I guarantee, okay, I'm not going to say I guarantee, but a lot of the time you will find that when the children find their way out of that, they tend to go overboard in trying to rebel against what was pushed onto them. I'm not saying I don't believe in children growing up in the church, but when you have such restrictive practices where there's only certain TV, they can't watch TV, or you can only watch this show, you can only watch a Sunday show, or you can't listen to this music, or you can't do this, you can't do that. When you restrict children like that, most of the time, in my experience, I've seen that when they come out of that, when they're in the college age, they tend to rebel. And this is what David is saying, is that he said he kind of left the church, but he didn't leave Christ. But he left the commitment he had to Christ. But then eventually found his way back. They always say if you raise a child up in the way they should go, that once they finally get to a point, they will come back. What you put in them is never lost. It's almost like a little beacon. The beeps, beep, 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 so they find their way back. And so what he's saying is eventually once he was able to sow his wild oats, he found his way back and, reestablished his relationship with Christ. which is, I won't say it's a common story, but it's a very relatable story. You can see what kind of that journey with him. Then he goes on to talk about his marriage. Of course, he's been married twice. First one, of course, he was really young. And when he talks about the second marriage, then he begins to almost break up. He has a very vulnerable moment, a very emotional moment. And I'm seeing that a lot with this season, that they really put some effort into trying to really get people to know each other. Because he goes on to talk about the second relationship where, the lady, walked out on him from what he's saying. And so what he says is like, I have a lot of love to give, but I don't want someone else, I don't want another person to walk out on me. Now, that can't be a guarantee, but you can see that he definitely wants something different. Now, of course, we don't know the details of everything, but we'll go and we'll see how that goes. So that's and then I think that's the moment where Liz could really connect with him, because a very vulnerable moment. Even us as viewers were like, you could feel it in him. Like he doesn't want another person to walk out on him. So I guess he wants to take his time up front and know that, yeah. And so you can see at this date, they definitely have some connection. And she goes on to explain that she hasn't had a committed relationship in 17 years. And like, whoa, 17 years. So it's like, she's like, hold up, I've had situationships, but, I definitely haven't had any kind of, real solid relationship. So now with the next scene, we're back. It's now end of the week. And so now we have the ladies' lounge. So everybody gathering around. And she's talking about Joel. She really appreciates how the date went. He had roses, the mimosas. She's blushing. She's like, blap, blap, blap. And then we go on to Liz and David. We know they had a connection. She's excited about how everything went. They were talking about the church connection, of course. And then she also confirms what we observed in the prior date, with that moment where he was open about, that he didn't want anybody to leave him again. She really felt the emotion in it. And then going on to Amber and Chris, confirm that she had a good time with him as well. And then finally with the sleeper couple, Chris and Ron, Chrisantheium has always come across as, just really unbothered is the word I might add. But she's like, like just doing all sorts, I don't know. But she does confess that I didn't think much of it when we set up the date. But by the end of the date, he's coming up the leaderboard for her, and she's surprised that they have a lot in common. And of course, also physically, she found herself attracted to him. So that's a couple, like I said, to watch out for. And so then we go into, who were they not feeling? So we go on, we have two people for David. Of course, Stacy, who has, I don't know, however she took the date. So David's at the bottom of the board for her because she was triggered by that conversation. And then Kyra, we don't know why, but Kyra has David at the end of her board. Of course, Venetia, she says she's not feeling AJ, and she's not feeling Troy. And then, of course, Liz definitely not feeling Troy, because if you remember the very first day they all met, the mixer, Troy was coming on a little too strong. She was polite with him, but I think he's tried to really kind of get into her personal space. Not a good idea, sir. But anyway, he got into her personal space, so she put her X on him, so she ain't gonna meet up with him. And then Alexis, who had met up with him, she's now hearing all this. Like, yeah, he really did kiss all these people. Yes, he really did promise all these people trip. So she knocked him down. She said, I don't want nothing to do with that man either. So it looked like 3-2 or something. So clearly, Troy. So there are two elimination dates: a Troy date and then a David date. We already know, like this. If it had worked out a different way, I would have had a real huge problem with these ladies if Troy didn't go home this week. So anyway, we have the elimination dates. Stacy meets up with Troy. She's in a cute little outfit just to make him see what he was missing. I don't know. Anyway, she looked really nice in her outfit. And then she goes on to address him, telling him about what the ladies had thought. And you know what Troy said? Troy said that he didn't recognize that guy. See, this is when people mock or make fun of or make light of people's mental illness. Because now what he's trying to say, he has two different people within him. He has multiple personalities. Is that what he's telling us? Is that what he's trying to sell us? That he has multiple personalities? I'm not buying it. But anyway, so he goes on to say, maybe he's trying to say that wasn't his best self, best foot that he put forward. I'm going to go with that. You know what? For his sake, I'm going to go with that. What he meant to say was that he didn't put his best foot forward. But neither here nor there. So anyway, they kind of go with it, and she kind of lets him know, that corny line. Well, the ladies have decided that you're not ready to love. I'm not surprised. The only thing, to take away from this was he was actually quite gracious. He wasn't rude. You know, some people can tend to you tend to see sometimes other parts of their personality when they don't get their way. And so he's been eliminated, but he kept his cool. I'll give you points for that. That's what I'm going to give you points for, sir. But I'm happy to see you go. And I'm able to say that, you know, that double thing when I hate to see you leave, but happy to see you go, sir. Very well. All right, so moving on to the next date, the Amber and David date. So Amber's, you know, seems to be a fair person. You know, she's kind of telling him that, you know, the ladies feel like he hadn't really opened up. And then she mentioned the issue about passwords. And immediately they was like, hold up, I already know who you're talking about. I had a conversation with Stacey. It wasn't that serious. I just kind of asked the question, told her what, boom, boom, boom. And so they kind of wade through it. And she's like, well, you know what? Maybe Stacey didn't feel that way. I just feel Stacey was triggered. So something that tells me about something in Stacey's relationship. That's what I'm kind of wrong with until I see more. Because she just seemed really triggered. That's the word I can find, triggered by that conversation. I don't know what transpired in her prior relationship, but we know she dated Baller, so we can see how she probably was triggered. So anyway, moving on. So she kind of, you know, explains to him, you know, just open up with more dates so people can get to know you better and just be aware of this is where Stacey is. And of course, we still can see you ready to love, so you stay on to the show. So guys, you know, it's looking interesting already, and I've said this at the top of the beginning of the season. It's already looking very different. I mean, for various reasons. This season I mean, there is COVID, but they don't have the restrictions onto one place, so they're going to different places. And also with the crazy season they had last year, they're definitely trying to switch things around. So there's been a lot of effort, I want to say. I can see the effort. So let's see, because you know, we already have like some couples coming forward, and it's looking good. So you know what? Stay tuned for the next episode. But in the meantime, guys and girls, please don't forget to like, make a comment, even share the video, and subscribe. Lola, over and out. Thank you.